Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Ovation webinar. First of all, I want to explain you that I have a new microphone just here. So this will be much better than in the past. I could get one last week and make all the tests and so that it works fine. Now about it. Like usual, please ask your questions via the live chat and I will try to respond to your questions or remarks or whatever. So the idea about this Ovation webinar here, it's aimed for AV installs and things like museums that need some show controller, some device that manages the audio at the same time and talks to all types of different interaction protocols to control other devices or to be controlled from other devices. So I'm gonna make my camera a little bit smaller here. I'm gonna start to explain you what I have on the screen. Wait a second, like this, gonna put myself down here, okay, and go back there, there we go, good. So the idea is that here, first of all, you see I have a mixer. This is a mixer, obviously an audio mixer, in which I build up on the right side, you see all these colors, different buses, different outputs. So this, going from right to left, actually, I kind of imagined having an installation with different zones in different areas. And this installation has one of its area that is an immersive type of AV install where you would have some video or whatever, or not, who cares, but where you have an immersive experience in terms of its audio. And then I have three zones, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, like just some audio that would play back. I made it in stereo, but that could be in multi-track, of course. And the idea is that you would have, for example, zones with variations either of music or ambience or speeches, if there's something to be explained by a text or things like this. And now the blue one is basically the one that we'll listen to. So when there's some audio playing in my device, this is where I would have to feed it to so that you can and we can hear it. And then the purple one is actually something that is a bus resend because I want to send it to all my outputs. That could be, for example, because in this situation, you have some specific events, perhaps every month or every Saturday or whatever, let's say for children or whatever it is, and there's actually some interactivity with some microphones and some people. So I have some microphone inputs on those strips here at the beginning, and they will be sent everywhere to all the buses. So wherever you are in those different zones, this sound coming from the microphone or the feed from the microphone and its audio, if there's any background audio or whatever, this will be fed to all the different zones. Great. This is the mixture. This is to explain you a little bit how the idea of what I wanted to show you. And now I'm going to close this mixer. We're going to come back to it a little bit later and explain you what I have in my Ovation in front of me. So the idea, of course, is that Ovation for this type of applications is that I have to design my show. And once this is designed, it will then boot up automatically, start automatically the show, and go to sleep at night. So for me to fix the hours. This can be done via the time of the day or via time code or different types of possibilities. Great. So let's start here on my left side. I build it in a way that I have different cue lists types. That means that they can contain cues, obviously, and those cues can contain audio media or just information. This information could be a rule. We're going to see how, but could be a rule, for example, when this very cue is launched, that it's going to do another action or several other actions. It could be a control cue. It means that there's a problem with your microphone. Difficult to follow. Sorry, I made some tests. Is it better here? Hello, hello. It just went behind there. Is that better? Oh, sorry. Yeah, so my microphone went just behind, excuse me. So I start again. On the left side here, okay, cool. Sorry. So on the left side here, you have different cue lists. Those cue lists, the idea to start from the very beginning. Hello, I don't know your name, TBR 9999. Shall I start from the very beginning again, or did you get something from the very beginning? Okay, cool. Thank you. So the idea is that on the left side, I have different types of queue lists. So the idea is that this type of queue lists can contain, as I said, cues, and those cues can contain audio media, but also can contain informations about controlling things, about being controlled, of course, also, but also just as remote objects to launch interaction rules that will do something else with it. Those different types of queue lists can be just very basic, what we call standard queue lists. So you go into queue list and you build them up here, basically, as many as you want. Those standard queue list is basically typically having audio playing one after each other. Okay, I mean the basic standard queue list. Then we have time queue list. And this time queue list is like there is one queue playing at this time, another queue at this time, or overlapping each other or whatever, but you have a start time. And this time queue list has an independent timing from the main timing you see down here. Okay. And then you have commands. This is where you can design basically buttons to be big, small, green, yellow, whatever, and write whatever in there so that you could provide this overview to a non-technical user if needed. Then I created a browser queue list, which is basically having some background music atmosphere, like for example the lobby in a museum or in an install or whatever, where you just want some music to play back and to randomly pick up some stuff that you can of course change whenever you want. It basically points out to a folder that I designed here, and whatever I throw in this folder, it will appear there. And then I have a hotkey queue list. This is basically in case there is an operator. So one could think that you would have people during those moments where there's a microphone, there are perhaps background musics or some effects or whatever for a show where there is an operator, and they can launch it from there. Good. This is the left side of my screen. In the middle side of my screen, I each time have here a little editor that I see when I click on a cue. And it's only, of course, if there is an audio cue. If it's now an empty cue, sorry, a cue without any audio in there, it doesn't show anything. Okay, it's only if there's audio, it shows it in here. And it shows it also when there's obviously some multi-track. So it shows all types of different tracks. And then this audio cue here, or this clip there, I can of course edit it the way I want. So it means that I can have the beginning of my cue and I can top and tail it here with a little fade over my multi-track like that and bring it back to here and there. So it means that will play only from that point when I will launch the cue. Okay. One thing that is also important to understand is that all these cues, these audio cues, can be PCM, can be compressed, can be multi-track. I can, if I want to have to play back a 96-track multi-track cue, I just can. I just basically open my browser. I have one here, for example. Let me just get to it. And I just have some different, let me go to another drive where I know I have some stuff over here, and I just have some audio that I just can move in there independently of the sample rate, independently of the format, compressed, uncompressed, and so on. I set one sample rate for my project, for my show, and it will SRC all of that simultaneously at the same time. Great. So now the next idea of that is that on the right side there, yes, sorry, one thing before is that you see here the view of the different content of the audio, and then we have an audio gain matrix. That means that this is now a stereo file that I have here. The number 4 I ticked on. I see it there, and I go to the audio gain matrix. And the audio gain matrix, if I want, if I don't do anything, it's just going to play stereo. But if I want, I might, you remember, I have 3 zones or 4 zones. I might say, actually, I would like to play it over a much wider amount of zones or areas or tracks than what I initially wanted. So I could say, okay, I want now 5 outputs for my stereo file. So that means that this is my input, 1 and 2. This is the driving force, it's called here, that I'm playing. And now on those different 5 outputs, I can adapt my gain each time of the left channel and of the right channel. So I could make some mono if I want, if I consider it has to be mono, so summed basically, or I can adapt the gain wherever I want and then have a master trim for those 5 outputs. So for each individual cue, I have this matrix gain as well. And then on the right side, very important and very interesting, I have here 3 properties. One property, global property for the show, one property for the cue list, for each cue list, and one property for each cue. So obviously those are linked together and interactive, but let's start with the show properties just to show you a few basic things that are important. For example, that you can password protect it so that no one else than you or the people who have the password can access the show and modify it. The second thing is that to show an auto start. So that means that you remember that if we would then, once the show is designed, we would then put a computer somewhere in a technical room in a museum or whatever, and all this thing has to function on its own. So it means that when the computer switches on, there will be an auto start in the morning, so that the show starts on its own as well. So, and then you have a delay time of the application, so that because many things might be connected together, so that before starting the show, it waits 60 seconds, for example, so that everything is nicely connected. For example, if you have some GPOs to need to wake up, or you have some other computer devices and you communicate with them via IP, for example, to make sure that everybody is woken up, ready to communicate. So you can put here a delay, 60 seconds or whatever it is, and then you start the show, for example. You can then here decide if you want to work with time code or the time of the day and so on and so on. And then functionalities, I don't want to go into too much into details, but functionality is about validating the show so you don't destroy things and so on and so on. Then this is the cue list property. And here you see that I will have different properties, of course, depending on the type of the cue list. The time cue list, for example, has the possibility to chase to a specific incoming time code. So that could be a time code, an LTC or an MTC. I have several of those if I want to, and they coming in from generated by another device or generated by a master device or whatever it is. Let me do it here, no, because I don't have any time code here, and you want to start with the day of the time. Good. And then last but not least, cue properties. So I have now still this driving force cue property this time. So first of all, I don't like the name driving force. So I can call it my favorite song. Okay, so this is where I can obviously change things. I can give comments And this is there where I can start to also make some fades in, fades out if I want. I can change the curve of each fade. So I have a library of fades. And here is that I have an interaction rule. So this is where the first trick starts and where it's very interesting and important. If I click those three dots, so three dots, I will have a box opening, a pop-up opening. For this very cue, I can stop, pause, dim, fire, or select something else. So I could say, okay, when I launch this favorite thing queue, I would like to launch, for example, let's say the queue number 17 here in my hotkey queue list. Okay, so I go here, I say boom, I open it, fire, and now I go into my hotkey queue list, which I know to be at the very bottom there. Queue number 17, this is this one. And now I say, okay, fire this queue, not when ending, but when starting. And I'm gonna add a little 1 second fade to make it smooth and nice. And I say add rule. And you would have noticed that I have also a condition. So this will only work only if whatever something is, something else is paused, played, or whatever, then it wouldn't work, for example. And I say, okay. And now I added this rule here, and I see that on the symbol about my favorite song, I have this exclamation mark, which means that there is an interaction rule integrated in that. Then I can go a little bit lower, and I'm not going to pass everything in detail, but here there is one thing that is important, time queue. As I'm in a time queue list, I will indicate the time. I want this guy to play at, let's say, 10 seconds. So I say 10 seconds. And I see it here, go 10 seconds. This one is already go at 5 seconds, but I don't know the other ones. I haven't put anything yet into place for that. Then if I want, I can change the color because I prefer having it whatever, this color, and this is how it's nice, whatever. This, obviously, it's basic. Then the audio, I can change the gain. So I could say I want it to be at -6, so I can type it in if I want. And here, this is what is very important. I see also the sample rate and so on, but this is where it is very important. Output slot 1. That means, you remember at the very beginning, I showed you I have a mixer. So this is on which mixer I will play back this very cue. And if I go back into queue list properties, I also have the possibility to set a default slot. So output mixer strip, basically, for the entire queue list. I can do it either for the queue list, so everything what is contained in the queue list, or for each queue individually. Let's do it for the queue individually. So if I play this guy back now, I see that it's going to play here. Okay, this is a stereo channel going into 2 mono strips. This is why. So this is slot 1, and this is slot 2. And this is now a stereo strip. This is slot 3 and 4. Okay, so if I say that I'm gonna play it in slot 5, and I start it again, there we go. Why? Because I have slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, 4, and 5. Okay, this is the way we count it from left to right. And so this gives me a total independence about where I want to play back those different things. All right. And again, I repeat it, I can make it individually for each queue, or I can set it up for the entire queue list. And so, because I want to always play it on a specific strip on that aspect. Great. Now, if I go a little bit lower here, I can see that now, and I'm gonna move my camera away. Sorry, I'm gonna move my camera away so that you see it a little bit better there. There we go. So that at the bottom here, you have all the interaction commands for this very cue, my favorite song. That means that I have microphones, so I could open and use an input here as a microphone input. Okay, we're going to see that a little bit later. I have a timecode generator. So when I launch this, I would generate timecode at the same time with this port and this output. MIDI machine control. MIDI command. Let me close those so you see the others. MIDI command in MIDI channel, and then what for a command you go into the classic MIDI command possibilities and you select what you want to select and to give, and this makes it all a show synchronizer, basically what command you want to give out. Sony 2-pin, Sony P2 protocol, RS422, COM command. This is here very interesting also for serial ports. And then you have an IP OSC command. So typically we with a video player, with OSC, whatever type of graphic things you can interact and directly send a command to those. Very interesting, I can automate my OSC as well. Okay, so we talk here about specific, very basic AV installs and museums where this is perhaps not necessary, but you can really enhance your potential when you need to grow your installation. GPO, obviously. So you need a piece of hardware to be able to connect the GPO to the computer. But once this is done, you send all your GPO, for example, to switch on a light, to open a curtain, or whatever it's required. And you see, each time I make those modifications, it will add here some symbols telling me, be careful, there's also some command with it. And if I go down here, then I have the shell commands or the script. So this is interesting for running my computer, for example, for shutdown, so that I will have a queue that will have a time of the computer, and I say at 11 at night, 11 p.m., it will shut down, for example. So I can program it here, and then below there, I can mix automation as well, direct control, so basically automate the entire mixer. And then I can remote control, because it goes both ways, different things over MIDI, OSC, IP, and very interesting data tone watchout. So we integrated with them over IP directly communication path, so that we can link then one queue, for example, one audio queue to one of their queues and vice versa. Great. Now let's go and let's move a little bit further. I have this basic queue list, this time queue list, this command, background, and control hotspot. Good. What I would like to do is that when I will launch this queue is actually at a certain point to launch my time queue list. So now I could say that at 50 seconds, more or less, at that point, I will add a marker. And this marker, if I double click, or I see it here, so if I want to have it precisely at 50 seconds, of course, I can make it precise like this at 50 seconds. And I can say now that I want to fire my timed queue list when starting. I don't need any fade in, fade out, add rule. And I'm going to launch the show, and you will understand the concept with it, very basically. Initialize show. So why this possibility of initializing show and starting the show is basically if you work with a counter, and it also puts all the triggers out, all the commands basically reach to the others and test if everything works fine on that aspect. Now I launch my show. So it could be an incoming timecode, of course, but which I don't have on that aspect. And now I will launch this queue. And when I will launch it, sorry, it's a bit loud. And when I will reach my 15 seconds, I will see that it will launch. There we go, pop, and it will start my time queue list there. And this time queue list now is independent, and this one will go. And this is going to start at 10 seconds. Okay, so this is to show you the possibilities, how you interact with all of that. Of course, it was a bit messy in what you can hear because I just played some different things together on that aspect. Great. Now, that means putting this marker here, that means that every queue is a timeline. It's not only something at the beginning, but within the queue, you can post as many markers you wish that will do as many things you want. So even I could say that I could add, for example, a long empty queue. and I'm going to put it at the end here, and I'm going to call this one my timeline. And now here, I just add markers that will do things. This cue list is 1 hour. And I could say, no, my show is not 1 hour. It's 1 hour and 20 minutes. Okay, great. You change it there in the cue list properties. Now it's 1 hour and 20 minutes. And now you add your different events whenever they need to be. And this is then your event list when it will launch and trigger other things throughout the show. Good. Going to the time queue list, I go to the command list. And this is typically something that could be done to start a show. So here, somebody will just come in the morning because perhaps it's not automatic, or it only happens when somebody is coming to the show, when people come in into a specific room and there's still somebody, a guide or whatever, wanting to start something. This could be done over the timeline here because you can hide the other queue list. So it could be a touch screen or whatever. Or we have a little web browser that I'm going to open there. And basically this, with this IP address, which is the IP address of my computer, the person then has directly straight away those command lists. So now here I see all queue lists available. You can hide them so that you only see that one without the main commands, and then you would launch it from there. So this is then a real-time possibility that I can, sorry, I'm just gonna move back to here, where I can then launch my different queue lists, and I could launch it from there. And this will play it automatically from a distance without any interaction and any, how can I say, problematics or potential problematics of screwing up the system, because it's just a remote control. So the guide, if we talk about the guide, will have nothing to change in there. This is now my background music that I can populate and change and whatever and update, which is specifically on that folder. It could be also a network folder. Obviously, it's a computer folder, so that can be local or over the network. And this is, as I said, with an operator. And this changes a little bit. If I see here on the right side the hotkey queue list, I can say also toggle and play or toggle and pause, depending of what you want to do with all those buttons. And now I created those. Those are actually just commands, for example, to launch a GPO or to launch a MIDI or to launch an IP. So this could be an operator doing things, launching lights, launching different things that are going on. Or sometimes it's an operator doing that, and sometimes this is done directly via an interaction rule. Now, how do I manage all of this into my audio with my different zones? So I have here my microphone input. So if I open it there, I see that I have here different inputs. And let me just close it so that I have more space. And I'm just going to move my camera again to the right side so that you see it. There we go. And there we go, back again. Good. And now the thing is that those colors are on purpose there so that I can see in which buses those different audio is sent to. So this microphone input for the moment is sent to a group. So it means that it's a sub bus basically, which is this purple one. And now I could say I want to send it to all of them. Yes, I just have to compensate the latency. This one, this one, this one, it's done automatically, this one and this one. So now I can make a queue that will open this microphone. And when this microphone is open, it will go out to all my different zones. So to what we hear in the sky blue, to the zone 1, the brown one, the zone 2, the zone 3, and the immersive zone, so that what's going on, let's say in the main lobby with the microphone, because there's a presentation, gets fed everywhere. But perhaps at the same time, something else is playing. So I could now say that control hotspot, and I create a queue here that is called open microphone that I prepared before. And if I go here in the cue properties, I see that's going to open my slot 2 of my microphone. But at the same time, I'm going to add an interaction rule. I'm going to add an interaction rule where I'm going to say dim or pause, but let's say dim all cues or all cues on the same slot if I want, or let's say all cues. All cues when starting with a little fade of 1 second and a little fade out of 1 second, and I'm going to dim it by 30 dBs, apply rule. Okay. So that means that now if I'm initializing my show, start the show, you remember that I'm going to launch this one. Just going to make it a little bit lower. So now this is launching here. You remember that it will launch also my cue list at 10 seconds, if I remember well. And now, yes, now this one is launched. And now I'm going to launch my microphone because we have something happening. And you will see now it opens this microphone. I don't have a microphone input now, but it dimmed all the other ones as long as I'm playing it. And when I stop it, it moves it back up to the top. And this, so don't be confused. I'm listening to all my zones at the same time. Okay, so this is how to be able to monitor it. But obviously those outputs are all individual, and just what I selected in the proper zone will be played. Apart from my microphone is played in all those different zones at the same time. And now I have here something that is in multi-track. And there, what is interesting in Pyramix is that obviously I can downmix, sorry, the input, because I don't have a physical input here. My microphone input is used to be able to speak to you. So I don't have something to be fed in here. But if you want, I can show you with the idea uh, and with a generator, if you wish. So that would then replace basically my microphone signal. Where is it? Generator. There we go. And I'm just gonna make it a very low noise, like this. Ah no, because I need an input. So this is wrong. Sorry. I'm just gonna put it, let's say here. Filter generator like this and like that, and this noise. And now, yes, not the first channel, the second channel. Yes, the first channel, yes. This could be, for example, another input. I mean, I just invented something in the idea. But let's say that now this I send it to my internal bus 1, and I send it back here to my internal bus 1. So this is now my physical input that goes in here. And that means that when I initialize the show, I start the show, and now I have this input still going out here, but nothing happens now. I would have to open the microphone to be able to play it now everywhere, and then close it back again to close the microphone. Is that clear with you? Now the idea, of course, is that I was sending this one everywhere in the idea that yes, it is connected to all the different zones so that I can hear something when I play it back. But again, I can also disable this. This is up to myself, the way I want to manage those different types of possibilities. Good. Now, what I wanted to show is how do I handle a multi-track? This multi-track is now playing back on this strip number 7. Why? It's called here number 7. It's a surround strip, a 5/1 strip. And the idea is that I have it here in slot 11. Why? Because it's slot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So now this is playing back there. And this track, when I play it back, for the moment, it's playing back out here. But I have an immersive output, or that is 11.1, but I have a 5.1 sound, or 5.1, so to say, mix or stem or whatever it is. And therefore, I have here my panel. This panel now, I see those white dots. These white dots are basically playing my 5.1 in an 11.1 environment. I see it from the top on my lights on my left side and from the back on my right side, with the top speakers there and the red one being my speakers on my side. And now, of course, I can change the source. I can move them around. I can make some divergence if I want, and I can rotate them if I would like to, in X, Y, Z, the way I want it on that aspect, and then have a divergence in 2D and 3D. Great. This is, so to say, about an output that is fixed, or so to say, that is more like an 11.1, where we have precisely to put a speaker. But in an AV install or in a museum, we not necessarily have the possibility to exactly fit to a standard. So this is why, by clicking on this 11.1, I can open this here and I can remap it into something different. So these are all different types of standards, immersive standards and so on. But where it gets more interesting even is that I can say, actually, I would like to design one. So let me just stop that and right click on my mixer, and I say now bus, add general mixing bus, where I was before. So here I can add my mixing buses or groups, send returns, aux bus, aux group, send returns, and object buses, so independent object bus from mono to I think 64 tracks. And what is the most interesting, I can make it custom. So now I say that I want to have 12 speakers, but I design and decide wherever they are, and I size them. For example, I have a 20 meters diagonal from my front area, for example. And now this guy, this custom here is there. For the moment, there is no color in there. Let me change color so that you're gonna recognize it. This dark red will do it. And I click on custom, and the first thing I have to do is to design my room. So I could say that channel 1, I keep it channel 1, or I call it left. And or I can give enough custom name if I want, is next to window, so that I will recognize them. And then I say in meters here, well, this one is 10 meters X, or rather minus 10 meters X. This one is perhaps 2 meters, and this one is minus 4 meters. And you see that now, obviously, I have to do this with all the speakers. No, that's a bit too much. There we go. And so on. And bit by bit, I will design my room, and I can, of course, save it and re-export it somewhere else. But that means that now this guy, when I send my room in here and I remove it from the immersive, I have now the 4 speakers are already placed. Okay, but I can design my room and move my audio through there without any added tools or whatever it is, for already a proper immersive experience on them. So this is a very interesting type of feature that you have directly in the mixer of the Pyramids. Of the Ovation. You can, of course, automate all of that and so on, but we made it and we kept it on purpose for the moment. Very simple, very basic. Also, I can add some plugins in here, for example, if I need to EQ some music or to make some room correction if needed or whatever. In that aspect, you can add your VS3, which are our own Flux plugins, or VST plugins, whatever you want on there, on all the mixer. Last but not least, very important, is that now we are under the preparation of this show. And at one point, this show will have to move, will have to be put forward to the museum and that it lives on its own. So, first of all, you can package the show. So, it means that as I work now, for example, from different hard drives in terms of the audio, takes bits and pieces in there. So, packaging the show makes me an entire show into one folder so that I can move it easily around and install it again. I can also have a show validator. So that means that I'm gonna validate my show by bringing it. I don't know if I can bring it from one window to the other, but basically it tells me, no, I can't bring it, sorry. It tells me if I made some connections that are wrong or if an audio file has disappeared, for example. And then last but not least, I have also a log file. So this is interesting for a show. For example, if a mistake has been done, you notice the mistake, it will appear here. But every functionality, if I start the show, every functionality will then be played in here, showed in here. If I stop the show, then I didn't enable it. So the log file will show you that. And then the most important is that, sorry, I just messed up there, is that in settings, the idea, the concept is that you will have one installation, and depending of the size of an installation, depending of the importance, and perhaps also the security aspect of that, you might need a redundancy. So you could have a second Ovation with all the same show in there, the same medias and all of that, and you will then mirror those commands of the main master system to the second system. So if this one fails, the second one will automatically take on. So this is typically an aspect that is used for us all the time in theme parks. We have many theme parks where the system is used, and this is then a functionality that is very useful on that aspect. Great. I think I showed you a little bit all the idea and the concept of what is possible with those different zones with Ovation. Of course, there's many more to say, also in terms of preparation, automation, the integration with Pyramix as an editor and all this type of things, but I don't want to do too much at the same time. So do not hesitate to comment and to ask for specific webinars about the specific topics, and I will be happy to answer them and to make them if there's some demand about it. Thank you very much and have a great day. Bye.